If you ask most wrestling fans what their favorite championship in the business is, most look back fondly at the WWE Intercontinental Championship. To even mention its name gets some of the biggest fanboys to squee with delight. Here, I'll show you. Hey, Ian.
What's up?
Intercontinental Championship. See? Though the WWE Championship is obviously placed on a higher pedestal, the IC title is often favored more by hardcore fans because it's been held by some of the greatest men to ever lace up a pair of boots. Mostly as a launching pad to the world title, but also as an occasional consolation prize for guys who may never get a shot at the top gold. This belt's been nicknamed the Workhorse Championship for good reason. While plenty of people have held the belt multiple times, I'm far more fascinated by those who only held it once. In its history, there have been 42 one-time Intercontinental Champions, including the current champ, the Big Dog! Some people didn't do so well with their one shot, but for other guys, it helped define their legendary status. And this week, I'm gonna rank them, the top 8 one-time IC champs in history. Quick caveat, for this one, I didn't just want to determine the best by going over to Wikipedia and ranking them according to how long they held the title. That helps in some cases, but not so in other times. For example, Big E and Curtis Axel had the 7th and 9th longest one-time reigns respectively, and they didn't do shit with it. This one's going to be judged on a combination of things, like how they won the championship, the length of the reign, who they beat as champion, what else they did during their reign, and a bit of my own personal preference. So, let's begin. Number 8. Greg Valentine. Wrestling's favorite cigar store Indian brought to life, he was Washington State's favorite wrestler until Daniel Bryan came along and brought the Intercontinental title into the WWF's golden age. After a brief time away from the company in the early 80s, the Hammer returned to the WWF in 1984 and soon became the 6th man to hold the IC title after a dirty win over Tito Santana. He would hold on to the belt for 285 days, and his was the first championship defended at the inaugural WrestleMania at Madison Square Garden. He would continue to wage war with Santana as the months went on, before ultimately losing the belt back to the master of the Flying Burrito in July of 1985. A great wrestler, a great Intercontinental Champion, and a WWE Hall of Famer. Yes, sir, he has certainly had an illustrious, respectable career.
You said Thank you very much. It's great to be here in the backyard.
Oh, no. Number 7. Ken Shamrock. This one's always been a favorite of mine. I always thought that Ken Shamrock was one of the biggest missed opportunities in the company during the Attitude Era. He had a great look, a great skill set, and was so damned intense in the ring. He wasn't very strong in the promo department, but nobody's perfect. I think the only reason he was never put in the main event at the time was because it was already pretty loaded. Ken won the IC title in a one-night tournament on an episode of Raw in October of 1998 after Triple H had to relinquish the belt due to injury. In the midst of his 125-day reign, he joined the corporation and even became a double champ, winning the tag team gold with the Big Boss Man. As IC champion, he feuded with Mankind for a while before simultaneously battling Billy Gunn, Goldust, and Val Venus, who were all hitting on Ken's sister, Ryan. That storyline's kind of weird because the woman who played Ken's sister was also dating Ken in real life. There's a lot to unpack with that that's way over my pay grade. Ken lost the championship to Venus at St. Valentine's Day Massacre in February of 1999 and never held gold again until becoming the NWA World Champion in the early days of TNA. But for a brief period of time, the world's most dangerous man held firm as a solid Intercontinental Champion. Number 6. Rick Rude. The latest man on this countdown to be inducted in the WWE Hall of Fame, his time as IC champion in 1989 was a huge building block toward his legend. Rude's 5-month span as champion was bookended by his classic bouts with the Ultimate Warrior for the title, beginning at WrestleMania 5 and ending at SummerSlam later that year. Rude spent his entire career redefining what heelish narcissism looked like in professional wrestling. But as champion, he took that self-appreciation to new heights, right on down to his custom airbrushed tights. Rude's rivalry with Warrior over the Intercontinental title not only built the Ultimate One up as a credible babyface, it also paid off in a future main event program between them the following year, capping off with a steel cage match for the WWF title at SummerSlam 1990. One of the best heels of his day, as champion, Rick Rude was simply ravishing. Number 5. Ken Patera. For a long time, I've known Ken Patera for exactly 3 things. He's a former bodybuilder from Portland, Oregon. He once spent 2 years in jail for throwing a rock through a McDonald's window, then assaulting the reporting officer, and he also helped the Mighty Maccabee become 2-0 in pro wrestling. But of course, he's also known for being the 2nd ever Intercontinental Champion, beating Pat Patterson for it in April of 1980. Not only did he go on to hold the belt for more than 200 days, he also made history by becoming a dual champion. But unlike Ken Shamrock's accomplishment, Patera's transcended the WWF. See, Patera held the Intercontinental title and the NWA Missouri Heavyweight title simultaneously. To my knowledge, this is the first time someone held WWF and NWA gold at the same time, until a number of Japanese wrestlers did the same thing with the NWA Junior Heavyweight title and the WWF Light Heavyweight title years later during the 1997 J-Cup. Patera would feud with the likes of Patterson and Rene Goulet over the championship, while simultaneously fighting Bob Backlund over the world title before losing it to Pedro Morales at the end of 1980, and stands as one of the major accomplishments of one of the biggest heels of the early part of the decade. Number 4. Randy Orton. In late 2003, a young Randy Orton beat Rob Van Dam to become the Intercontinental Champion, his first singles gold in WWE. Fans already loved to hate the cocky third-generation superstar, so they must have been pretty mad at him when he held the belt for as long as he did. In an era of blink-and-you-miss-it championship reigns, Orton's time with the title stands above so many of his predecessors. Between The Rock's second reign as IC champion in 1998 and Orton's only reign in 2003, only a handful of guys held the belt for more than 2 months, and even fewer for 3 or more. Considering the respective backgrounds of The Rock and Orton, I don't think their lengthy runs are a coincidence. For 210 days, Orton held the belt with a level of gravitas befitting a seasoned veteran while part of Evolution. Defending the title against Cactus Jack at Backlash really helped legitimize Orton as a star, and from then he would go on to defend the title against guys like Val Venus and Shelton Benjamin before ultimately losing it to Edge at Vengeance in July of 2004. That title reign was the beginning of something much bigger for Orton, as he would beat Chris Benoit for the World Heavyweight title just 2 months later at SummerSlam. He got his legs cut out from under him during his next feud with Triple H, and it would take a while for him to regain his mojo, but that single reign with the title put the future Viper on the map. Number 3. Pat Patterson. If you're going to make a list of the best one-time Intercontinental Champions in history, you have to include the first one-timer. Pat Patterson made history in 1979 by becoming the inaugural Intercontinental Champion. The story goes he won a tournament in Rio de Janeiro to win the prestigious title, and although no proof of that tournament's ever been discovered, who are you to doubt the good folks at WWE? Becoming the first champion would be the final major in-ring accomplishment for Patterson, who'd been wrestling since the late 1950s, most notably for Roy Shire in the San Francisco territory. But Patterson defended the title for more than 230 days, holding back the likes of Ted DiBiase, Dominic DeNucci, and Captain Lou Albano? Billy, Billy, Billy! Number 2. Randy Savage. Seriously? Another countdown with Savage at or near the top? Okay, sure. Randy Savage, one of the best. He won the title from Tito Santana. He lost it to Ricky Steamboat in one of the best matches ever at WrestleMania 3. There you go. I love him, but I'm running out of things to say about him. Before I reveal number 1, here are a few honorable mentions. Roddy Piper. Roddy Piper was an absolute legend in wrestling with a level of charisma that was unparalleled. When you think of all the guys in history who should have been world champion, the Hot Rod's often at the top of people's lists. Piper won the belt at the 1992 Royal Rumble when he beat the Mountie and ended his illustrious 2-day reign. He soon lost it to Bret Hart in a hell of a match at WrestleMania 7. He may not have done much with the belt in between, but for him to finally claim a singles championship in the WWF was a great high point in his storied career. Drew McIntyre. Though he's done well for himself lately in NXT, Drew McIntyre's first run in WWE screamed wasted potential. After being anointed on air by Vince McMahon as a future world champion, eventually his personal problems with then-wife Taryn Terrell led to a serious demotion of the company. But his lengthy run with the IC Championship that began late 2009 and ended in May the next year was one of the best for any champion during that time period, feuding with the likes of R-Truth, John Morrison, and Kofi Kingston. He was one of the bright, shiny beacons of the company's youth movement, snuffed out prematurely in part due to backstage politics. British Bulldog. Another one of those guys who might have become world champ in another era, the Bulldog's crowning achievement in wrestling had to be when he beat Bret Hart for the IC title at SummerSlam 1992 in Wembley Stadium. After holding the title for 2 months, he lost to Shawn Michaels and was later released, after it was revealed that he and the Ultimate Warrior were receiving HGH from a pharmacy in England. But the fact that he won the gold in the main event in the only Big Four show to be held outside of North America, in his home country no less, is a legendary accomplishment. D'Lo Brown. This is another personal favorite of mine. In my opinion, D'Lo was one of the best mid-carders in the WWF during the late 1990s, turning the European Championship into his own gimmick, whether he had the belt or not. His biggest moment came in July of '99 when he beat Jeff Jarrett to win the Intercontinental title, becoming the first man in history to hold that and the European gold simultaneously. Yes, Kurt Angle, D'Lo Brown does count. And the best one-time Intercontinental Champion in history is the Honky Tonk Man. Is there any question that the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time would be the greatest Intercontinental Champion on this countdown? It's kind of a slam dunk number 1 when you think about it. To this day, his is still the single longest individual reign in the title's history at 454 days. Only 3 other people have held the title for a combined number of days longer than him. Ricky Steamboat had just had the belt for a couple of months after beating Savage, then lost it to the Honky Tonk Man. And if fans were mad to see the Macho Man with the belt, they were in for something else with Honky on top. Not only were his heelish tendencies even more grating than Savage's, he also held the belt for more than a full month more than him. A guy who thought he was the king of rock and roll but clearly wasn't. A guy who claimed to be a terrific wrestler but who cheated all the time. It made the fans furious. Honky tore through a who's who of jobbers during his time as champion, but he also wrestled some of the best: Steamboat, Hogan, Beefcake, and Savage. Honky Tonk Man's influence as a record-breaking champion was felt for years after the fact. When Santino Marella was the champion, he even started bringing out the honkometer as a way to gauge his own success. He ended up coming nowhere close to his goal of breaking the record, and man, what a missed booking opportunity that was if he got close. You can tell Peggy Sue and the Colonel too, there's really no question as to who belongs at the top. He's cool, he's cocky, he's bad. The Honky Tonk Man is the best one-time Intercontinental Champion of all time. So who do you think belongs on this list? Let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to thumbs up this video if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Wregret, and buy the t-shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.
Just a honky tonk man. I'm just a honky tonk man. I'm cool, I'm cocky.